How do you find geodata? Where do you start?
The most obvious place to start is just the documentation for various social networking APIs. So anything that's a platform is generally going to have good API documentation. So Facebook's API docs, Twitter's API docs, LinkedIn's API docs. Those would definitely be the obvious places to start. You're going to see that, in addition to tons of other types of data available, there is special sections carved out for geodata, as it's just becoming completely ubiquitous with the rise of GPS-enabled mobile devices, phones, etc. A less obvious place that's much harder to find geodata is in natural language data, in text mining.
Mm-hmm.
And so lots of locations being talked about in natural language data, and there's just tremendous value in finding it. It's not the obvious, easy place to start, but there's tremendous business opportunities and value for anyone who's willing to take that plunge and start to look into free text data.
Is location data generally well structured?
Well, so it's sort of all over the place. In the case, I've sort of seen three different ways you'll find it. So you'll generally either have geo-coordinates handed to you on a silver platter.
Right.
So for example, in tweets, you'll sometimes see that people geo-enable their tweets, and for a particular tweet, you'll get an XY coordinate. However, in user profiles on Twitter, there's a location field. That might be something obvious like Franklin, Tennessee, that you could geocode very easily with the gazetteer, but it might not be. It might be planet Earth, or it might be everywhere, or in your fridge eating your foods, or something that just totally doesn't make sense.
Right.
And then again, you have natural language data, so if you look at a tweet as an example, you would have to actually examine the language and try to extract a place out of that pseudo-natural language data.
So it sounds just as complicated as any other type of data. Is that
fair? Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, it sort of varies wildly, but there are easy places you can go to start. Start with the easy places, work your way up.
Mm-hmm. What types of questions do you feel like you can explore with geodata?
So something I've been thinking about a little bit recently is that if you put a person in time and space, what's really left? And I think where I'm getting at with that is that I think you can infer just about anything about a person if you can put the person in time and space. So that would be, where they spend their money, where they spend their attention, maybe where their kids go to school, certain things that might make people a little bit uneasy. But it's a big question as to whether or not privacy, whether it's even possible to have a certain amount of privacy in a digital age where you make certain trade-offs in the types of devices you use. And of course, we've had digital phone records for ages. You can triangulate cell towers, electronic banking. If you know where someone spends their money, we get basically back to these same places of where do you spend your time, and if you spend your money at a place, it says something about your values or your interests. And so, everything is sort of working in a cycle in that way. I think that people are just becoming a little bit more aware as, in particular, mobile devices become so ubiquitous with GPS.
So last question I have for you. Do you think that non-technical people would be surprised at the amount of location data that they generate?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, a couple of examples. One is that there's a YouTube clip you can find. It was a little local news station. There was a woman who was totally alarmed that all of these Facebook photos that she had been posting had geodata embedded because she had a pretty decent camera or was using a mobile device like an iPhone. And her concern was, well, all my photos are about my children. And so if someone wanted to, they could figure out where do my children live, where do they go to school, where do they spend their time, which playgrounds do they spend time in. This woman had totally no idea. We sort of spend time with very technical people, around O'Reilly circles, but I think there's a huge audience, beyond just that core tech community that really doesn't think about this stuff quite as much, and there's a good bit of education that could certainly be done.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it.
Great conference. Glad to be here.
Thank you.